Welcome, everyone, to the Color Now podcast. My name is Matt Britt.
And I'm Jamie Schick. And today we're real excited to chat about something that happened very recently, which is Michelin coming to Boston and awarding Boston's first star. And to talk about that with us today, we have Chef Chris Coombs joining us. So, Chef, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So, real quick, just a little bio is Chef Chris Coombs is the COO, co-owner and co-founder of Bossy, a next generation lifestyle food and wellness destination in New England. Chef Chris leads all culinary operations across a variety of concepts, including a full-service French cafe and vinoiserie, an elevated sports bar, and the award-winning Bossy
Enoteca.
Thank you, which earned a Wine Spectator Award of Excellence in 2025. He's also known for his acclaimed Boston restaurants, including Duave and Boston Chops. Chef Chris has earned national acclaim through Forbes 30 Under 30, Food and Wine, and appearances on Food Network's Chopped. So we do have a lot to get into today with Boston earning its first Michelin star and Michelin coming. So should we just dive right in?
Yeah.
All right. So I know that I worked in Boston for a long time before coming to teach, and the thought of Michelin coming to Boston was always on our minds, and this is 10 plus years ago. So I'm curious if you have thoughts about why Boston and why now, though? Like, why not 10 years ago?
Sure. Well, I think why not 10 years ago is pretty simple, right? No one was willing to write the check. And Meat Boston stepped up, reportedly, over $1 million for 3 years to Michelin to
Wow.
come and inspect in Boston. And Meat Boston's the former Greater Boston Visitor and Convention Bureau. So I think that the initial intention was to bring additional awareness to the Boston culinary scene, and certainly if that was the goal, that has more than been achieved in the last week. Perhaps not in the format that it was originally intended, but my goodness, has this been the talk of the town?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's definitely, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's questioning it. Everyone's got thoughts and opinions
Oh yeah.
on it. Um, And I mean, I think it's I was doing some research on Michelin, like and how you earn a star. And I think something that's really interesting that I didn't realize until I was preparing to chat about this was that, and you kind of touched on this in your now viral Instagram post on this topic, but that chefs can't just cook for Michelin. They have to cook for their guests. And Michelin actually talks about this too, saying you shouldn't be cooking for us. You should be cooking for your guests. But I think a lot of chefs don't think that way. I think they get that wrong.
Well, I think it really depends on who your guests are, right? And one of the key points that I brought up in the post that's gotten some attention on Instagram was just that there's nothing more rewarding than having a full dining room. And awards are nice for your mantle, but a successful business is the true marker. So, where do you define a successful business, right? How do you define it, right? And I think what happened last week is the city as a whole, writers, chefs who commented on who might get what, which I refrained from the entire time publicly, they got it wrong. Everyone was wrong. And everyone overestimated how this global force in rating restaurants was going to perceive the city of Boston. Okay. But what's interesting about Michelin is what makes it special is actually its scarcity. Okay. And that scarcity has a business model behind it. And I think some people sort of forget that the travel guide is a business. This is not about selling tires or anything like that. The Michelin guide is a business. Okay. I was with the team from the Inland Washington last week because the Relais Chateau conference was up in Boston. So I was, with the team from the Inland Washington, and Emerald Lagasse was there, and EJ Lagasse, and Gavin Kaysen, who's a good friend. And we were talking this through, and the In a Little Washington team, whom was one of 3 restaurants that was just taken down from 3 Michelin stars to 2 Michelin stars. The other 2 were Alinea in Chicago and Masa in New York City, right? So someone at Michelin was like, hey, we're going to take a star away in each major market in the Northeast, right? One from DC, one from Chicago, one from New York City. Michelin then, from what I'm told, went and shopped the story, trying to get the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Tribune to pick up the story about them cutting stars away from chefs. Now, again, none of those 3 restaurants have I eaten at in the last year, so I don't have a personal opinion on whether those are 2-star restaurants or 3-star restaurants, right? But the general awareness, right, comes down to money, advertising, and exposure. And if you keep in mind that the Michelin Traveler Guide is a business, then a lot of what is occurring makes a lot more sense because it is driving traffic, conversation. People are so engaged. And I feel like they're playing a game at a very high level that a lot of people don't understand.
Right. So this is a lot to unpack there. And we're not going. We already made we're not going too down the road of like specifics because those restaurants you mentioned, the Little Washington, obviously has been an icon in food for decades now. So
yeah, I worked there 20 years ago.
You probably still have your Dalmatian pants. And again, I haven't eaten there in the last like 5 years, and so it's hard to really comment on whether or not it's justified. But you mentioned something earlier that like the results of last week in Boston kind of like we got it wrong. Like there was a ton of chatter about this restaurant or that restaurant, and I feel like it's important to note that like a lot of Boston restaurants did get recognized by Michelin, in the Bib Gourmand category, and maybe not necessarily in the star category, but
there were only 5 Bib Gourmands, and then everyone else is recommended.
Yeah, I mean, it's still mentioned though, and like here's the thing is like I agree.
Not to take anything away from any of those restaurants because it's an amazing award. But I don't know a single chef coming up at any age that says, "Oh, I dream of being recommended by Michelin." Everyone wants a star.
And let's dive into like sort of the what the recommended means and what 3 stars means.
Sure.
3 stars is like, I don't know, worth the journey, right? What the hell does that mean? I mean, it's like obviously that's rooted in the idea of initially it was a tire company looking to get people to go further distances and to prove the validity of the tire. But in your eyes, did Michelin make a statement knowing what it costs to get them to come into Boston for 3 years? Was this a strategic play by Michelin, or do you think they got it right? Like, do you think Michelin came in and was like this huge chatter, but we're going to make a statement that only one restaurant gets a star? Like, how does that work?
So the truth is, I don't know the exact answer to your question because I didn't sit in those dining rooms and have the experiences that the inspector had. What I can tell you is that the exact same thing happened in Dallas. One restaurant, 1 star. And then a bunch of recommended and some bibs. So look, it's their awards. They call the shots, I do think that, I mean, I'll just speak very candidly here. For me, Oya has been the best restaurant in Boston for 15 years. Okay. And there are a lot of people that say that, but don't understand it because it's prohibitively expensive to go to eat there.
Sure.
So am I a regular at Oya? No. Have I been there 3 times in my life, and all 3 times was I totally blown away by every element of my experience, including the bill? Yes. So, right? Like that bill comes and you're like, I think the last time I was there, it was $1,400 per couple. There was 6 of us there.
That's crazy.
It was $4,200, and we didn't order like crazy wine or anything like that. It was just, you're having this course and they come by with a huge bottle of sake and they're like, hey, we want you to try this. But then that try is $150 a person per, shot of sake. So, and that's how it goes there, right? And that's their model. But it's delicious. It's thoughtful. And they were completely left off of the list completely. And That was an omission. And then I personally have issue with how many restaurants were grouped into recommended. Right?
Hmm.
Like I have a hard time, and this is just a me thing. I'm not saying Michelin's right or wrong, but I have a hard time grouping like Chef Alex Crab at Asta with Carmelina's in the North End and being like, these are both recommended because they are recommended, but there's like no delineation of like, is Asta a better restaurant than Carmelina's? Most people would say yes, but they received the same recognition
Designation.
designation. Thank you. So unclear.
Yeah, so that's actually really interesting, and I was looking at I was trying to get some answers from Michelin earlier because I had questions too. Like it's like this mysterious thing, and no one really knows. And you just to your point, that's so funny because they're talking about the set criteria, and they're like Michelin says there's no secret recipe for a star. They're just looking for an exceptional cooking experience, whether it's innovative or traditional, tasting menu, a la carte, it doesn't matter. It could even be rustic. They're just like, they just want consistency. And there's there's no rules. Like it's just a consistent experience. They said that wine list, they said the ambiance, none of that goes into their decision. And they award stars to restaurants, not to chefs. And I thought that this was really, really interesting because of the number of people who are trying to get, like you said, they're trying to get a star, not a recommendation. And it's just, it seems like it's just luck almost.
Well, I think the question that many chefs have to ask themselves, or what I would ask myself if I were in this position, I would say, how good are we on our worst night? Because if we're talking about consistency, you have to ask yourself, like, how good of a restaurant are you on chef's day off? How good of a restaurant are you when two line cooks and a dishwasher call out and you have three cooks that are working two stations? How good of a restaurant are you when you're short staffed? How good of a restaurant are you when you give your staff a vacation that they deserve? And this comes back to a larger conversation about the city. And I think this is sort of where, not to cite the entire Instagram post that I wrote, where we as chefs, as entrepreneurs, have decisions to make about who we want to be. And you can't be everything to everyone. And I think that this really, I'll just be honest. I watched the awards live and I almost fell off the couch. I almost fell off the couch. I watched it with my wife and almost fell off the couch out of pure shock. Because I, like everyone else, had a certain preconceived notion of places that I thought were going to do really well. And then what I perceived it was is we're going to line everyone up on stage together, give everyone who's there the same award, and take a picture of them and be like, that's Boston. Except for 311, which, by the way, huge congrats to 311. But again, the statement that was made is that there are only 10 seats in the entirety of the city of Boston that are worth a Michelin star.
Right.
And for me, I don't know if that's true, but that is our truth now. And I have had friends reach out to me from France. I have a chef friend in Jakarta who used to have a 2 Michelin star in Arles. I've had friends from Hong Kong reach out to me, and the Globe now judges Boston as a city that only has 1 Michelin star in the entire city. So for my city that I love, I'm 41 years old and I've lived in Boston, other than my 2 years at the Inn at Little Washington and 2 years at CIA, I've been in Boston my whole life. So for me, it pains me because we have such tremendous talent in our chefs here, like tremendous talent that is like well respected by many. and has been for years. So it really got me to thinking to like, well, how did we get here? Like how did we land with 1 star? And then I started thinking about like who we feed in the city and how like Bostonians in general are pretty rigid, right? And there are some guests that, hey, they're out for a business dinner, they're out for this, they're out for that, and they want what they want. But there are so many people who just want what they want. And I don't mean people with food allergies. I mean, they just like want what they want because they're used to getting what they want in so many facets of their life that when they go to certain restaurants, they expect to just like get what they want. And that can be really detrimental to creativity in a restaurant. Like, for example, I love chicken. I eat chicken at least once a day, right? Because I keep a very healthy diet and regimen, and I want to take care of myself. But when I go to Asta, I don't expect Asta to feed me chicken. I want to be in the hands of the chef, and I want Alex Crab to cook for me, right? So when you have many people that all sort of want to treat restaurants like it's a country club and they can kind of build their own dish and modify and, make their experience a certain way, what happens is if you don't cater to those people, you're very slow. So then what you see is a lot of quality restaurants end up with the signature burger on the menu or the bolognese or the mass appeal dish. And one thing that, Jamie, I'm sure you read about Michelin is that they look for a cohesiveness on menus. And they want to judge you by your weakest dish and your worst day. So if you back up a little bit and you think about each restaurant's weakest dish and their worst day, that's how we landed where we are. And again, that's not to take anything away from the people who got recommended, but it's part of a macro issue of there are too many restaurants and we are all battling for the same customers, right? So in that battle for customers, what you're doing is you're like, instead of cooking the food, which is one of my big messages, is like cook the food that's in your heart, not the food that everyone else wants to eat. Like I prayed in the beginning of Duoff, like I prayed that people would show up to eat the food that I dreamt about cooking since I was 16 years old. Like legitimately, like in the bathroom on my hands and knees, like, please God, bring people to this dining room that I can share nourishment with. Right? There are really expensive structures that exist in our industry right now, right? Rent's crazy. Labor's very high, but I'm glad that cooks and chefs and everyone else involved is finally being paid like a livable wage. The cost to produce food, like the actual ingredients, are more prohibitive than ever. I mean, Jamie, like, let's talk about the cost of chocolate and coffee. Like, it's insane. Like, if you've seen the
It
price
really
on
is.
chocolate, if you've seen the price on chocolate in a restaurant, like, I can tell you that like, since the pandemic, we're talking about like more than double. And I mean, and the good chocolate is even more than that. So it puts you in this position where, some people, when they open a restaurant, they'll, collateralize their home. They'll invest every dollar they've ever made. And it forces you into these places where you have to cook what people want to eat. And I'm not opposed to that. But if that's the world we're in, that doesn't mesh with Michelin stars. It's not the same thing. If you want to cook for Michelin, you have to be like, this is my mission, this is my story, this is how I source, this is how we prepare things. We only use the best of the best, and we don't deviate from the formula. And if people come, great. And if they don't come, we're just going to stick to the formula, right? And like we've seen restaurants in Boston that have closed, right? To use an example like Menton. Menton was one of those restaurants that was like, we're going to be Relais Chateau. We're going to be really fine dining. And I have to say, nobody went to that restaurant. The restaurant never made money, right? And it's like, it was within a group of restaurants that like did make money. So it was okay. It was an offset, but no one went to that restaurant. It was not supported by Bostonians, right? We've seen other really high caliber chefs. Jean-Georges came to Boston, closed the restaurant really quick. Danielle Boulud came to Boston, closed the restaurant really quick. right? There are many examples of this. So it really comes down to what type of food city do we want to be in Boston? Who do we want to be as chefs and who do we want to be as people? And furthermore, do we really want to allow Michelin to be like the definer of what we are as a food city? Because right now they are. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's taken as God's word about cuisine in the city right here as we sit here today.
So do you think, how do you think Boston responds to that? Do you think they respond in a way that is kind of what I feel what you were getting at, that was we should be true to what we know Bostonians want? And that's
I mean,
a good thing.
you still have to pay your rent, right? So it's like
Percent.
it's all like nice feelings to be like, "Oh, I'm going to cook fairy tale cuisine and have 12 seats and only serve 18 courses." And for example, like Nightshade up in Lynn, they've got a 30 course menu up there. Like, God bless Rachel Miller for the work that her team is doing up there, but I can tell you there is not a shot that they were aiming to only be recommended. You're cooking a
100%.
30 course menu. You're definitely hoping for at least one, if not two Michelin stars. And everyone wrote that they would be one that got it, and they were overlooked, and not overlooked, I'm sorry, they were grouped with everyone else who was recommended. And again, there's some really talented chefs that got the bib gourmand, and recommended. And again, great opportunity for them to get 1 star in year 2. But we can really only talk about where the food city is here and now, and the ratings that we have in front of us, which just leaves me feeling like the city fell short as a food city compared to other cities of its size and stature. And it hurts me to say that, because I
Yeah.
and again, it's not like oh, well, I wanted something, I didn't get it. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. Like, I'm running a pickleball place, right? This is not my fight. This is not my fight at all, right? So, but I've been in this world long enough. I've cooked, I've been a chef in a 3 Michelin star restaurant. I know what it takes, and um and I just want the city of Boston to get the respect that I feel like it deserves. And by the way, I have immense respect for so many chefs in the city.
For
So
sure.
many.
No,
So
I just, I go back to something you said earlier. It's like I I don't think Boston fell short. I think Boston lived up to what it does extremely well, which is cook amazing food, just not necessarily what that guy deems is star worthy, which is a shame. But it doesn't mean that Boston fell short. I think Boston did what it does very well, and I just look to the future to see if Boston will change based on that result. Like
but
our chef's gonna
okay,
bend.
but if you're like, okay, hey, that was what Boston deserved,
I don't think
then
it was
why
what
is
they deserved. I think they do what they do very well, and I think that fit with the guide and how they award stars. I don't know
okay,
if
so but then
deserving
in
is the
that case, then like, why is the guide here? We can't find anything better to spend $1 million on, because like, I'd rather give that money to
for
the food
sure,
bank.
100%.
That's just me though.
But chef, I agree with you. And but I'm saying, I was like, is why is the guide here? We started the episode with a very clear answer that someone paid for the guide to come in for 3 years.
But not really someone. Meat Boston did,
I
which
know,
which like all the restaurants pay in. Like, we pay like $895 a year
for
for our
sure.
membership with Meat Boston, right? So they're taking like member dollars to stimulate the city. But like, are more people going to explore Boston's food cuisine based on the guide that was just presented?
So
I
I
would
mean,
hope so.
like you, like my phone probably was blowing up the entire week leading up, and then obviously
Mhm.
afterwards. I also was like sitting on the edge of my couch. I wasn't watching it live, but I was like refreshing the Boston Globe, and I thought something was wrong with my phone because it kept like not, it kept not like, it was like 21 star, and I'm like, this is wrong, this is wrong. My, I think it will change, because like I live in a neighborhood with people that maybe aren't super like gastronomic or don't go out to eat a lot, and they're like interested in it. So I do think it creates buzz. But back to your point earlier, is like, we kind of know why Michelin came to Boston, but like, should Michelin have come to Boston? Is my sort of more existential question to you, given the result.
I would have loved Michelin to have come 10 years ago. But that's
Same.
now that is a selfish statement, right? Like that there's no 10 years ago, no one would have been happier than me to see
Yeah,
Michelin in Boston. I'm not in that place in my career anymore where that's like a big moment, so to speak, for me as an individual, for me as a chef.
right.
But and by the way, that could change in the next couple of years. I might get the itch to like, work 90 hours a week again. Right now, I don't want to work that much, right? So, and I've done it, right? And I've done it, and there were really rewarding parts to it, right? And then there were other parts of my life where, like, for example, like my son's 9.5 years old now. I'd like to see him,
Yeah,
right? Right? Look at the look on Jane's face, right? Like I'd like to see my
I
son.
can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, I also would like to see my wife every once in a while, right? So, and again, when you're cooking at a certain level, right, at that Michelin level, you have to be totally all in.
yeah,
You have to be.
that's true.
There's no substitution for hard work when it's at that level, right? And there are times in my life where I'm willing to give all of myself to that. And I'm at a time in my life where I'm not willing to give that at this moment, right? In this chair as we talk today. So, is it the right time? Would we have done better 10 years ago? I don't know. Food moves so fast, but I can tell you for sure that the pandemic did a number on the workforce in Boston. And a lot of these chefs, just like, for example, Tony Moz, like still one of the best chefs of, my lifetime in Boston. Pandemic was it for him. He was done.
Yeah,
So there are a lot of chefs that just said enough is enough.
yeah,
Enough is enough. So look, I hope that look, I don't think anything bad comes of what just happened. Do I think that diners become more aware of their choices? For sure. Do I think chefs become more aware of here's the like markers that we need to hit and work on for us to get to that next level? For sure. Um, but I really hope that most will just continue to do what's in their heart and what's right for them, and not pander and not push to be anything other than what they dream to be. I think it's so important to maintain, like, whether you own a burger joint, a sushi joint, a French restaurant, or an Italian restaurant. I think it's so important to be who you intend to be. And that doesn't mean that the vision can't evolve with time, right? But I think it's really important to be true to yourself, right? Regardless of what inspector. And I made a couple comments about cooking for influencers too, and cooking for Instagram and likes and views. And I've just seen so many places, like some of these dining rooms, and I'm not going to call out restaurants in specific, but like some of these restaurants are designing dining rooms and food for Instagram. Like things will just straight up be pink, like everything's pink, and like that looks awesome in a picture, and it gets a lot of likes and views, which equals guests, which equals money. And like that's certainly a business model, and there's certainly a place in the market for that because people want it, right? So like that's not me knocking it, but it's like you can't be everything to everyone all the time, right? Like you can't be cooking for Michelin, cooking for influencers, cooking for the neighborhood, cooking for regulars. Like those are all very different subsets, right? And like you kind of have to drop, like you can't fill all baskets at all times. And I will also say that Michelin, if you look at it across the globe, they certainly prefer smaller restaurants. Like the larger your restaurant is, the bigger your menu is, the more of a disadvantage you're at, right? So like there were restaurants that there, not me, but there were people who were shocked about certain restaurants that were not mentioned in this list. And to me, I was just like, good restaurant, way too big for Michelin. I mean, this is the guide that knocked Danielle Boulud from 3 stars at Danielle to 2 stars and down to 1 star. And it's like Danielle is still like one of the most spectacular experiences that you'll ever have. So if you use that as a comp and you're like, well, Restaurant Danielle in New York City, which is exceptional, is only one Michelin star. Now take Danielle in New York and compare that to every restaurant in Boston, and how many restaurants in Boston can compare to that restaurant. Guess where you land? Exactly where we did.
Yep.
Exactly where we did. I'm sorry, that Danielle dining room is like, it's like a $30 million dining room there,
It's amazing.
right? And you can say, oh, it's not judged on facility, it's just on food. But like,
No.
that's not true, because Noma, it took forever for Noma to get its third star. I don't remember exactly how many years, but forever. And it was like the improvements in service that ended up getting Noma its third star, you know? So,
Yeah, and I think that that's an underrated. Sorry, JB, I know you wanted to go. I think that's an
No, you're
underrated
good.
part that we don't always talk about is the other stuff. Like we always focus on the food. I think the service and the experience and is, it's important to that guide.
Even though they say it's not, but I agree. I think they go for the I think they go for the whole experience. I go for the whole experience.
Yeah.
I love great service. I mean, yes, I'm a sucker for it. I love it. I love just that. I love the whole thing. Well, Chef, we appreciate your time today and sharing all of those thoughts on all of this. And yeah, so thank you for chatting with us today. We
it's my
very
pleasure,
much
guys.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
thanks for having me. And again, I try and be a voice for those that don't have one. And it was really important for me to share this messaging because I'm in a lot of group texts. I know a lot of
Hmm.
chefs, and there are a lot of people that don't have the platform that I have to get messaging out there to be like, hey, we're in this together. We can do this as a food city, but like, here are the things that we need to do. So again, I'm on here today unselfishly to continue to spread messaging for those that don't have a platform. So thank you guys for sharing your platform with me. I truly do appreciate both of you and Johnson and Wales University. So thank you.
Absolutely. Where can people find you if they want to check out any of the things that you're doing?
Sure. Chef Chris Coombs on Instagram is the best place.
Awesome.
Cook what's
Very
in your
cool.
heart, chef. Cook what's in your heart. That's what I took
Cook
from
what's
this
in your
part.
heart.
Right. All
Yeah.
right. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.